He said it was live.
Hey, we're back, guys. Thank you for hanging in there with us. We are back. All right. Well, welcome back to the show. Thank you for being so patient. We're going to start from the very beginning. So welcome to this very important education update for the last week. Everything's been coming at us like a fire hose, everything from masks to today we had the State Board of Education meeting. I mean, we've kind of had it all. So let's start with masks. So last week, Charlotte Mecklenburg decided to vote to bring masks back into the picture because all summer long, no one's had masks on, children, teachers, etc. One big happy family. But the data on some Delta variant or something now has changed things, and now kids are going to be masked in perpetuity in Wake County as well as in Charlotte Mecklenburg school system. Dr. Anderson, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I think that should be an individual decision. I think that any person that comes out and says, well, all kids can wear a mask because I wear a mask at work all day and I'm fine, or my kid's able to wear a mask all day at school and they're fine, is really being unnecessarily arrogant. And there are children, and I know as a fact, that are incapable of really keeping the mask on, just don't tolerate it well, don't learn well with it on, have trouble, semi-traumatized from it. There are those children there, and that's fact, whether you like it or not, regardless of what study says what about CO2 levels.
Correct.
So I think if you're a responsible physician, you would take that into consideration and not just go out and say, well, because I can wear a mask, all day and I'm fine. We know that kids can. That's completely red herring. That has nothing to do with anything. So I think it should be an individual decision. I think, kids aren't especially affected by COVID. We've known that for a while. The deaths are incredibly low. In fact, I believe that it's been high flu seasons have had a higher impact on death rates for kids than COVID. So I would ask if those white coats that have been at these meetings that are saying the mask should be mandatory were there during bad flu seasons, suggesting mandatory masks. There's a consistency here that's lacking. And of course, any physician who has, I know one of them was named yesterday from the Wake group that appeared and had some very ideologically driven tweets, which is, of course, her right to have free speech and all. But if you're up there protesting or being an activist for the same views that you're tweeting about, I would question that doctor's ability to be objective in approaching the situation.
Right. Right. I broke that yesterday. What we had yesterday and what we've had a couple of times is, 10 doctors show up in white coats who are saying, wow, as a doctor, I really believe this is important. Last night, we had about 10 of them show up at the meeting for the school board in Wake County. Incredibly maddening because, as I understand it, none of these doctors were actually parents of children in that school. Moreover, as you spoke, the lead doctor who spoke was an OBGYN who had no fewer than 25 tweets about how horrible white people are, Republicans are, as well as cops. And so she had this. It's a very public account. She had where she worked, etc. And she went in as protest in her capacity as a doctor to a school board meeting. So again, we've talked about this. When you're mixing politics and public health, never a good thing. But for me as a mom, what I'm telling you and what I've heard from a lot of other moms, when you're mixing censorship, coercion, and public health together, it's very hard to feel comfortable about giving your child a mask or not a mask, right? Or a vaccination and not a vaccination. And I think that's where we are now. We want medical freedom. We want parental rights. So on Monday night, we've got Moore County coming up. Now, Moore County is going to go through this whole vote on to mask or not to mask. And there are, I believe there's 4 folks on that board that are leaning towards masking. And so we're going to show up there. We're going to show up in force. And we're going to say, look, this is an issue of in a way, privacy. Now they're going to argue, well, this is going to spread, et cetera. There's no evidence of that. We don't have the evidence. And when you don't have the evidence, it's really, you're only going to have a certain time horizon of being able to force parents and teachers to do this. I mean, last year, Nancy, or 6 months ago, the incentive to get a vaccination was that you won't have to wear your mask anymore.
Yeah.
And so
that's the other thing, the constant flip-flopping is leading to a distrust in the system. And even people who are left ideologically or initially strongly wanted these mandates are now even questioning it. I've seen, a video, I think it was Michael Rappaport, the actor who's very progressive. And even he's like, what the heck? You just told us we wouldn't have to wear a mask if we were vaccinated. Now we're in danger of giving it to other people. Like, what are you? I mean, it's just not a well thought out plan. It's very ideologically driven, and even more reason to have these be individual decisions so that you can talk to the people you trust, find the doctors you trust, make the best decisions for your family. And that makes sense to me.
Right. It absolutely makes sense to all of us because look, I mean, you're talking about children here.
Right.
What makes me mad as hell is to hear all these people who I've never really heard a parent say this, but I've heard people tell us that, oh, kids are magnificently happy with the mask on. They've been doing this all summer. They're fine with this. They're perfectly content. That is bull excrement. That is not true. It is not normal. And by allowing these kids to remain masked without a fight, it normalizes this very abnormal, aberrant behavior. Is wrong.
Yeah. And no one should shame the kids. I mean, they're basically saying, I mean, I read some letter from a practice group, a physician, and in North Carolina, and she said, because we're able to wear the masks all day, there's no problem. Kids should be able to too. And I couldn't believe that was coming from a physician.
Yeah.
There are children who have psychological distress from this, and it isn't fair to shame them or to make them think they're going to kill their teacher. That makes no sense, and no one should be blamed for any of this. This is unless you want to blame China, but I mean, this is a virus. It's going to spread. There are going to be more cases. It's going to fluctuate. It might be seasonal. The cases are going to go up. This is happening. You're not going to stop a virus because of a mask mandate. It's just not going to happen. Right. There are too many variables there. People don't wear their masks correctly. They take them on and off. That half the time.
Fauci, we've heard Fauci say this, but our overarching point is that we are not going to allow this to be normalized without a fight.
Right.
Great crowd showed up in Wake County. Bravo to them. Last week in Charlotte, we had about 300 people. We were out in full force. We have teachers out. We had all kinds of folks saying that, no, this is not the way it's going to be. Now, let's move along to today. Today, we have some pretty bad news in that the reading scores have come out for grades 3 to 8, and this is for last school year. This is what we're looking at, guys, just so you don't have to get out your monocle, if you will. I'm going to read these to you. So when we look at third graders, a little bit over 56% of all third graders are not able to read. They don't meet grade level. They're below. And that's pretty consistent all the way to 8th grade. So what we're seeing is most students in 3rd to 8th grade, this may not surprise you, are failing reading. This is called literacy. This is a problem. This is even after, I believe this is after the summer of learning loss recovery programs that summer school had. Now, we're also looking at, when you look at students that are barely making it in reading, that's another, nearly 18, 16, 18, 20% across the board. So we have a literacy crisis.
Mm-hmm. This is the pandemic. This is what we were trying to say earlier. I'm like, this is what people should be really focused on. This is what doctors should be really concerned about and mad about. And this is what we really should be, the debate should be about, not whether a 12-year-old needs to have a mask on or not, but what's going on with our kids in reading and where are we missing the boat? Like what else do parents need to do to improve these scores? What else do families need to do? What else do the schools need to do? This is the real problem that's going to last generations. And the thing with kids is, your brain is forming so quickly, and a year is a problem in terms of education. So if you're not learning to read by grade 3, and then even if you're able to catch up after, there's a certain amount of information that you're just going to be behind. There's no reason why a third grader shouldn't be able to read, let alone 80% of them, or close to, barely being proficient, if that. So this is the real crisis. Why this isn't in the papers, why they shouldn't, why the NNO isn't reporting on this, why Twitter isn't going crazy over this. That's the real problem.
Well, it's a distraction. So they're going crazy over the mask, which is a problem. Right. Don't get me wrong. And over all this other stuff, this is a distraction. So look, what you're looking at right now, guys, is the grant application that the DPI sent to the feds in DC, right, to qualify for what's called ESSER funds. And I'm going to explain this to you. This is what they sent. So here's how it works. They applied for the grant to get federal money, and the grant money comes in via DPI. DPI disperses it to districts, okay, to LEAs and districts. So you're going to see something that to recover learning loss, number one on the list of priorities for the DPI is social emotional learning. So no matter what gender the students are, their English learners, disabilities, etc., their idea, and you're going to see the only thing that's consistent on all of these. I'm going to show you another one. The only factor that's consistent there is that SEL, social emotional learning, is number one. Mm-hmm. That's priority. You're going to see Asians, which do not have a problem with their reading scores. This is our data from here. They don't have a problem. Blacks, whites, etc. So the money being sought here to correct the problem that you saw on your file or on your screen, that's social emotional learning. So, we believe that's a problem for a variety of reasons, but we're not the only one that thinks CASEL, SEL.
Never given money to CASEL, and their materials are probably still on our website, left over from the previous administration, and when.
Okay, so what Catherine Truitt is saying here, the two more county parents sent us in this interview. I guess Catherine Truitt did in the last few days. What Catherine Truitt is saying is that I don't like CASEL. I have no idea why it's on the website. It's the other guy's problem, right? We have nothing to do with it. Now, I just showed you the grant application. I just showed it to you, right? That she said that or her department said rather that the number one goal was CASEL SEL. That's the issue. That's where everything lies. That's what we're going to do. So, that's all we can say is what's on the website and what's going on in the school classrooms, which we know very well about. So on the issue of having
never given money to CASEL, and their materials are probably still on our website, left over from the previous administration, and when.
Okay, so she goes on like this and says, we don't like it. I don't like it. I don't know why it's here, etc. I can't imagine what's going on. And then I'm going to play you.
I'm not
going to play this.
Never given money to CASEL.
Wait a second.
And
whoopsie. Let me see if this is it.
CASEL.
Oh, sorry, guys. All right. So I'm going to try to play you the other video that we have. But as far as CASEL SEL, we've pointed out many, many times that, look, this is the way that you're going to get transgender education in. This is the way that critical race theory is being brought in, Nancy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, CASEL is, and Truitt essentially admitted as such. She said CASEL may have been a legitimate thing in the past, but it's gone woke, like everyone else. So she even knows that it's a problem. What I think is a little disingenuous is the fact that, she's saying, I don't understand why and I'm, at some point we'll play the clip, but that why are parents going off our NCDPI website? Which I think is kind of a strange thing to say, because one, at this point, parents absolutely have a right to be concerned and to be wondering what programs are going on and what's supported by our taxpayer money. And in this day and age, what you're going to do is check out the website and see what's on there. And NCDPI is full of CASEL SEL links. I know the process for getting involved with CASEL from the State Board of Education has been in the works for years. So she's right, it does predate her. But to say parents shouldn't trust their website, and unless they see it in the classroom, they shouldn't really be complaining or what's the big deal. I have a problem with that as a parent, and I find it a little bit elitist. I don't quite understand that answer. I think it's a problem. And again, there's this constant, oh, you don't need to look at what the state's doing. I mean, even at one of the last State Board of Education meetings, she and one of the principals of the year came together and said, we're transparent with parents. You can trust us. But now she's saying, don't trust our website.
Right. So let's hear what she has to say. I think I'm queued up.
Diversity and they share a space. You know, it's like discrimination.
It's her fault. Let me ask you this question. If we have concerns about, for example, CASEL, is there one place that a parent can go to, or a group of parents, and express those, and not just be some person who's sending a letter or an email, but who can actually get the attention of the right person who can do something about this, who can get this taken off the website, for example?
Well, so first of all, I would say that parents need to ask themselves, what's the issue with it being on the website? I mean, right now it's just on the website. If the real issue is if they see that if they see this in their child's classroom, or if they learn that their child's school is paying CASEL to train teachers, etc., which a school or district would have the right to do. It's at that point that parents need to mobilize and say, no, I don't want my children engaging in white privilege lessons while they're at school. So I think parents need to ask themselves, am I actually seeing this in my child's classroom? And if the answer is yes, then they need to approach the school.
Well, if I may, and I do not want to turn this into a debate, it is an interview, but if parents see things upon the website that could be used by a teacher that they very much disagree with, it's not a very hard stretch, a long stretch for us to believe that, well, DPI must okay this for a teacher, and so therefore a teacher might teach it. And so we ask ourselves this question, why would it remain there? Because you and I both agree that there are things in CASEL we don't want taught in our schoolrooms. And
absolutely.
And so then the question comes up, is it a very difficult thing to take it down? Because it is very upsetting when teachers dig in, or rather parents and teachers too, I'm sure, dig into this and see some of the things that CASEL's proposing. It just doesn't seem right that we would leave it up there. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. I think that this is state government moves at a glacial pace. There's no doubt about that.
Yes,
and
it
there
is.
are procedures and red tape that I have to go through in order to remove things from our website. Sometimes, and this is not true with CASEL, but sometimes there are, for example, the North Carolina Council on the Holocaust actually controls one piece of our website. And I needed to get something taken down from there that was linked to something that I did not approve of. And I actually had to go to the council to ask them to remove it. And fortunately, they agreed, and they did remove it. But again, I would just encourage people to understand that, not even the governor of our state has the authority to do whatever.
Okay. So what you just heard is that why are parents worried about what's on the website? So Catherine Truitt has time and again had a real distaste for our group, a real distaste for parents in general. We've seen the way she's talked to parents. She's charging parents hundreds of dollars and $1,000 for me to find out any information about what the DPI and the State Board of Education are doing. She doesn't want anyone to know what's going on behind the scenes. And the things that are going on in front of the scenes, she's going, parents, why are you worried about that? One thing that really, really pissed me off as a Jewish person is she's sitting there saying, I don't have any control about the website. But what the Jews had about the Holocaust, that was so over the top that I absolutely did get involved in changing. And I just found out what they asked her to change. So Catherine Truitt hit the roof whenever I guess some material said that the death camps were Polish. The death camps were located in Poland. That's true. And she removed it. She was so offended that the information said that the death camps were Polish, that she took immediate action and called the chair of the Holocaust Committee and had them remove that. But stuff about white supremacy, privilege, and gender, which I'm going to show you this up there, that doesn't offend her at all. But it was stuff having to do with the Holocaust, a minor thing that, as you can see, she cleared her desk off and she changed it.
Yeah. Yeah, the degree of inconsistency here is off the charts. You can't predict the next thing from one to the next, how she's going to answer a question. I haven't seen any consistency other than saying, yeah, I dislike CRT. I don't think it's good. I've taken a lot of flack for that from the bureaucracy. But then everything else, what she does not match that.
Well, this is what is on the website right now. This is the DPI website, Castle website that she doesn't find objectionable. That SEL, remember, SEL is the key here for her to improve reading for the DPI and for the state school board. It's supposed to improve reading. Of course, she admits that it's not academic.
Yeah, she said in that same interview that it's not academic, that it's soft skills. It's not an academic endeavor.
And she's right. So this is what privilege, white privilege, prejudice, discrimination, social justice, empowerment. So that's not offensive. That's actually on the website. And the statutes say that Catherine Truitt is responsible for communicating what the state school board and what the DPI does. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So what she is in charge of, she'll change it when it comes to things that are offensive towards, some and not others. Mm-hmm. And I find it roiling that it has anything to do with the Jews and with the Holocaust. It's absolutely infuriating.
Yeah. Because one of the other issues she brought up in that interview that I wasn't quite expecting was some of the work that's been exposed at the governor's school, including an assignment that kids could not opt out of and kids had to attend. I've confirmed it with the whistleblower and some people in the NCDPI. There is no pre-warning or opt-out option for these classes that are essentially based in intersectionality and critical theory and are known to be within that system to be based in the stuff. Among those things were a bunch of privilege checklists, including heterosexual privilege, white privilege, Christian privilege. Kids had a journal about their heterosexual privilege, and then they also got a handout which included a gender spectrum type identity survey along with the flying gender unicorn. They didn't have to turn it in, but they were taught as fact that gender is indeed fluid. There was no discussion allowed, no differing viewpoints allowed. And she did mention the gender unicorn, and she did mention the teacher. Well, so I don't know. I did not discuss the identity of the whistleblower or the teacher with
her. Yeah, let's go back. We're kind of moving around a lot. There's a lot.
I'm a little disorganized.
There's a lot to tell about this story. So here's the deal. The governor's school, there's 2 locations of the governor's school. It's a 5-week program for academically gifted students across the state. So the DPI, Department of Instruction, runs the governor's school. They plan it, they run it, etc. So when she was asked about, so what happened was this: is a couple families came forward to Nancy a few weeks ago and said, "Hey, listen, Yeah, my kid is being pumped information by someone who is on the campus but is not a teacher. They're not even a teacher. They're an activist. And they're coming into this preeminent school that's run by DPI and giving this crap, this gender identity, this I'm emotionally attracted to women, men, other, etc.
Yeah, this
so they're
person's not a teacher. Not
that's
like
right. And so Catherine Truitt is like, hey, we talked to the teacher, no big deal. But that Holocaust stuff, buddy, that's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, I would have thought it would have garnered much more for someone who's very against CRT and who doesn't think this stuff should be happening. Again, there was a deflection where, well, the NCDPI doesn't do curriculum for the governor's school, which I'm like, these are NCDPI employees. The governor's school is run by the NCDPI.
Correct.
There's no LEA in between. So yeah, actually you are responsible for the curriculum. You do pay these quote unquote teachers who, this one wasn't a teacher, were not licensed in NCDPI, has participated in leftist activist activities, has no medical qualifications to be talking about these complex medical subjects that I don't know why 10th graders need to understand when medical people don't even necessarily understand. It does a total disservice to people who have gender dysphoria. It's completely medically inaccurate, but she just says, yeah, well, we talked to the teacher, and it's not the NCDPI curriculum. The teacher just inserted it. Actually, the Area 3 classes that are based on intersectionality and critical theory have a handbook for new instructors
So
with curriculum suggestions.
So what we're seeing time and again is Catherine Truitt has the opportunity to say, hey, these teachers were wrong. This was wrong. This was wrong. She continuously takes up for teachers doing badly. She continuously takes up for James Ford. She continuously takes up for people who have done wrong. She continuously takes up for her aide, her right-hand man who is married to a woman who is a lobbyist for critical race theory products. She continuously takes up for them. You heard the way she talked about parents tonight, that, hey, parents,
why are you looking at the
website? So it's a hostility towards parents fighting critical race theory and a warm affection towards wrongdoing. And it's this lack of transparency, complete lack of responsibility that is maddening and is unacceptable. Because one thing she said too, that is an out and out lie. And again, we're very hesitant to say liars. We do refer to Catherine Truitt as one for something that she said tonight is we don't push SEL at the state level. We have nothing to do with it. Earlier on, we showed you that if SEL in the state has nothing to do with it, then why the hell are they requesting grant money, right, to distribute towards districts for SEL? That's their number one goal. Number two, here is on the DPI website, the 4 focus areas of NC SEL implementation plan 2020-2021. Now, you could say, and you'd be right, that Catherine Truitt wasn't in on all of this. But certainly at the state level, this is definitely going on. This is the state level. Build foundation and support plan. Strengthen adult competencies. That means you parents. Part of this SEL thing is they want you in the mix. They want you in the activism. That's what they need. Promote SEL for students. Use data. Ding, ding. Not good. No me gusta. Data to make sure that they're able to collect personal things on you. This is the child spying program we have talked about. This is the child spying program we have railed about. This is wrong. She denies it's going on. It's insanity.
Yeah, and she even admitted today it's not an academic endeavor. It's soft skills. So to say that this is how then, if this isn't an academic program, is that going to improve reading skills? And then to just say, well, it might be on our website, but you shouldn't really be looking there. Trust what we have on there, is completely contradictory to her suggesting at prior state board meetings that the Board of Education, NCDPI, is totally transparent with parents and they should trust what they have or what they say. So part of that communication is the website, and Castle has been on there this whole time It's extensively outlined. There's an NC-SEL implementation team. The public Twitter account for the MTSS NCDPI has been tweeting support of CASEL, as recently as the past month or so. Transformative SEL from CASEL, actually, which is even more indicative of the CRT framework. And in terms of me as a parent trying to figure out what's going on at Governor School, I submitted a public records request from the NCDPI. I've never submitted one before from them. I don't send them a lot, emails and stuff. And it was a reasonable request. It wasn't filled with hundreds of requests, and they said they would need to charge me several $100s for that.
It's our information.
Yeah.
And the problematic thing, you and I were talking about this afternoon, if Bill 324 passes, and that is the bill that Phil Berger has put a lot of effort into, in fact, put, all the backing of the GOP is on passing this anti-critical race theory bill. The administrator of that bill would be North Carolina Department of Instruction. Now, right now, you or I could go to our school board, right, or our school district and say, I'm going to put in a FOIA because I want to find out if there has been any anti-racist trainings at this particular school, and they will give us the documents. If and when, pray to God, this bill passes, Catherine Truitt's office will be answering those FOIAs. That means, parents, you need to be prepared to ante up hundreds of dollars to get any information. The DPI is not transparent, and there's zero credibility. Now, I want you to know this, that the bad doers, or the people that are really up to no good, we've always said this, it happens to be many radicals sitting on the Board of Education now, the State Board of Ed, who have an outsized power over our schools. Catherine Truitt protects them. She will fight tooth and nail for them. She has gone to bat for James Ford many times, and we're trying to get documents right now about James Ford. She will not give them over. So Catherine Truitt is the protector of all the bad actors on the state school board. It's absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, she's also protected. This year, the Governor's School program changed from being under the Exceptional Children Division, I believe, now to being under the AIG program. The AIG program, if you remember, Sloan did excellent work exposing some of the problems with how to find kids to be in the AIG program, and essentially dumbing it down. The person who's in charge of the AIG program, who's also involved with Duke Tip, which has become very woke as well, is Sneha Shako-Train. She's definitely an activist. Her public Twitter account is very concerning. Many racist statements, many statements in support of white privilege. And guess who's in charge of the Governor's School now? Sneha Shako-Train. And I know for a fact
Catherine Truitt
this year, huh?
Right. So what happened at the Governor's School? Catherine Truitt was not being honest again about the Governor's School and about this issue. Mark Robinson brought this up. Our Lieutenant Governor said, look, can't have these this gender training, etc. So the reins have been tightened at the Governor's School under the leadership of Catherine Truitt.
And and to say that they're not involved in curriculum, I think, again, that's a just disingenuous situation. It may be that this teacher brought that in off the internet or whatever, but activist. Activist. Sorry, not teacher. That's embarrassing. Yeah, activist, not a teacher. Wrong to call that person a teacher. This activist brought that material in, but I also know from a whistleblower, I know that Sneha Shako-Train was very involved with the Governor's School this year. I saw her during the orientation sessions anyway online for the video.
What's her title? What's her title at DPI?
I think it's director of the Gifted and Talented Division or something, right. But that the Governor's School falls under the purview. And she was physically on campus the week during the orientation for instructors, as well as after, which, according to this whistleblower, is kind of a rare event for someone from the NCDPI in Raleigh to be physically there. Usually it's kind of its own thing, and they let the people there do their thing. So actually the NCDPI was very involved this year with Governor's School, and there's even a handbook for Area 3 instructors with curriculum that apparently, I don't have my hands on it, but apparently is based in intersectionality and critical theory. So the NCDPI, isn't...
We're studying this. And so, and Catherine Truitt denies knowing anything and says the teacher's been talked to We know that it's not a teacher, it's an activist. She poo-poos this, but got mad as hell because, one little thing didn't go to her liking on the Holocaust training. She had to clear a desk off for that. This is not a big deal, you guys. So parents are upset about this. Thousands and thousands of parents are upset about this. This is something that she can do something about and doesn't care about. So getting back to Castle SEL, not to interrupt you, but to interrupt you, sorry.
Yeah,
I
no.
need to also point out that we published in the Federalist 2 days ago about who runs Castle SEL. Remember, this is North Carolina is one of the preeminent states for Castle SEL. It's all over the website, as you've just seen. So Zuckerberg is, you can't really see this, but Zuckerberg partnered with North Carolina to collect data and to roll out this SEL program, which again, the DPI and the State Board of Education said it's SEL, social emotional learning. This gender crap is the #1 way to get out of the ditch with the reading scores. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're up against. And the last thing we'll talk about is, I cannot believe we're talking about this again. Social studies standards again. And this is important, you guys, because guess what? Hold on to your hats. The DPI and the state school board, more specifically, are getting ready to revise the, should we tell them? The health and what's it called? The health and science.
Yes.
That is going to be a battle royale. We need tonight to tell 100 people, tell your church, tell your schools, tell everyone that they're about to tinker around with the sex ed and the health stuff. And so what happened today, Nancy?
Well, I was able to catch, like I said, portions of the State Board of Education meeting. And one portion I caught, I was kind of surprised because, as you know, with the social studies standards and how controversial those were, Catherine Truitt, the latest thing from her last month was she was going to examine how exactly the standards are written and make them tighter and more concise and more detail oriented and perhaps chronological. So in the future, it wouldn't be so vague and confusing. So she said she was going to do that. So she came on, and like she said, I was going to present to you guys this month. I said I'd take a month and figure out these standards and how to make them more specific and relatable to teachers. But Dr. Stegall came up to me and said, hey, there's this procedure manual that we haven't been following for a couple years, and it's been around since like 1998. And it's a procedure manual that is the standard course of study, for developing standards and all that stuff. So she said, well, why do I need a template when we have a manual that's even better? So she's not going to do this template. She's not going to redo the social studies standards and make them necessarily specifically more detailed oriented. What she's going to do is have the NCDPI bureaucracy go through this manual and institute that for all the standards. That way there's one consistent way for the standards to be developed. In theory, it would be more detail oriented. Now, some of the things they did were reasonable in terms of reaching out to local districts to see, okay, what's the problem with implementing some of these standards and et cetera. And they did reach out.
Let me guess. Money.
Yeah. They got feedback saying, well, some districts basically load all their teachers with having to develop the curriculum for the standards. And the teachers are, weighed down with all this other SEL training and racial equity training. And then they have to figure out the whole curriculum for the standards. Other districts are able to hire people and consultants to come up and help with curriculum development. So districts can spend from $0 to over $1 million trying to develop curriculum around these standards. Well, so then my favorite word came into play.
God, don't do it. Don't do it.
Inequity. So Catherine Truitt met with various teachers of the year, very important people, to
was one. Every teacher of the year. It's like winning a Pulitzer Prize. You wince when you hear who won.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They're absolutely outrageous.
Not political at all. So she met with a group of teachers of the year to to get their thoughts on this. And they were talking about it, and they said, well, actually, the way the districts institute these standards is quite inequitable across the state. So we need to look at how to make them more equitable.
Please
so
don't say that again, Nancy.
Equity. So that's what this procedure manual is going to do, is try to level out the playing field amongst districts and give them more detailed information as how to develop and put the standards into place in an easy and more understandable fashion for every standard, not just social studies. So what was interesting, though, afterwards in the comments, of course, was that Truitt did say that, our department is big enough and we're expert enough. I mean, the people who plagiarized the glossary apparently are expert enough at combating these variables amongst districts, that the department has the expertise to support districts that may not be able to afford buying, hiring consultants and helping teachers with these curriculum materials. And so, we can give them the supporting documents. So the supporting documents, though, of the supporting documents of the social studies standards, though, was insanely problematic. So the very thing she said she was going to fix, which was making social studies standards more concise, more chronological, more defined as to what students actually have to know and not as vague, she's instead going to scrap that, going to have the same people in the bureaucracy who were responsible for some of these problems to begin with to work on this manual that's been laying around that they haven't been using, to update that and bring that to the LEAs. And then the local school boards that can't afford help, well, they can just use the supporting documents that are problematic already.
Okay, so the cool thing is,
Summarize that, Sloan.
the cool thing is she's stalling, I hope. That's not a bad thing. But again, I mean, the thing we've always had a problem with is look, we expect our elected officials to be transparent and accountable. That's all we want from everyone. We've absolutely hammered the State Board of Education for this. But of course, the State Board of Education, I mean, the administrator for the State Board of Education is Catherine Truitt and the DPI. We can't get documents about how things are being done at the state level. Trust me, take my word for it. We're always disappointed. In other words, we can't get any information, and they're not holding us accountable. What's interesting is, if Catherine Truitt was actually a Republican and actually conservative, as she said she was, her first act in office was to absolutely, positively, publicly flog us, teachers, conservative mothers, conservative fathers, clergy who are worried about critical race theory and transgenderism and an inappropriate age teaching. All we want is information. And instead, it's exactly what we heard is like, why are you reading? Why are you reading the website? Why are you doing that? And that's what we're getting. It's unbelievable. What I find that really pisses me off is that Catherine Truitt's office 2 weeks ago gave the left, the Progressive Pulse, 157 emails of me, all of my emails, all your emails, and other conservative or people worried about critical race theory. So she gave them 157 emails. They were to hit piece on us, but she won't give you 1 or 2 documents the first time that you ask. She won't give me 6 or 7 about, not even about her, about James Ford.
Yeah, my request wasn't about her.
It's not about her. She's protecting everyone else on there. She's making herself the villain, right? And she's by not giving us any transparency at all. And she thinks that parents and the people who elected her, who put her into office, that we're the enemy. But the bad guys, she thinks they're the friends. That's the most maddening thing about this whole mess and about her.
Yeah, that thing about the website, again, the interview, it reminded me actually of one of the first times when I recognized there was such a severe problem in the former school I had my kids enrolled in. And there were some very concerning links from our website supporting groups that were overtly racist, like literally anti-white racism, saying the future is not white on the t-shirts and social justice, this and that. And I was scared and I didn't understand it. And I went to the administration and met them face to face and had this thing printed out and handed it to them. And they said, well, just because it's on our website doesn't mean you have to believe it. Lo and behold, 6 months later, they've got Black Lives Matter painted on their sidewalk, and they're teaching kindergartners about transgenderism. So
websites matter. Why have a website? Why have a website?
This whole well, don't really look at her. That doesn't, just because it's on there doesn't mean anything.
But if websites don't matter,
thing to say.
If websites don't matter, why the hell is she so incensed that the website has one little thing about Poland being involved in the Holocaust, which they definitely were?
Yeah.
If websites don't matter, so she's picking and choosing who to tee off on. So she's teeing off on moms, on conservative teachers, on Jews, obviously, who want the Holocaust taught. So the people that she's picking and choosing to go off on should be very telling to each and every one of you. Very telling.
Yeah. She could very easily have said, I think, and I do have some sympathy for the fact that this stuff has been going on before for a long time. The education is left. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I can rummage up some sympathy, but it's only going to go so far before you have to start saying, well, I'm in charge here now. I was elected in a political system as a Republican. The Castle stuff was decided upon by the State Board of Education before I came. But now that I'm here, I'm going to say that this is unacceptable within my department. I'm going to take down these pages until we have an appropriate.
No, you're the enemy.
But no, it's well, why are you even pointing out these pages to me? What do you have to do with it?
Because you're the enemy. Right. Yeah, you're the bad guy. You're the bad guy. That's what she's saying. Let me see if I can play this again.
Skills, empathy for others.
Okay, so here she's talking about Celestia. I want you to listen.
In central offices working with educators as well as in buildings. The remaining 550 or so
that's the beginning. That's the bureaucracy.
Talking about
works for the state super.
Okay, so hold on a second. I really want you to hear about what she thinks of you, parents.
Of critical race theory, which are grounded in Marxism and really teach children that that our institutions, our laws, and our policies are still riddled
around the 1 hour 23 mark.
Discrimination and racism.
Okay, so the 123.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear this again.
So please go ahead.
Yeah. So I would again reiterate that the Department of Public Instruction does not provide curriculum materials to any school, including the governor's school. So this was an instance where a teacher
coming up after this
made a choice to use something that they had in their toolkit. It did not come from the Department of Public Instruction. And I believe that the leadership at governor's school has spoken with this teacher, and that the teacher is not using.
They're not a teacher. They're not a registered teacher, by the way.
Any longer.
Not a licensed
teacher.
Okay,
I want to return to Castle for just a minute and ask you this question. When parents meet, and they're meeting more and more across the whole United States, and they have questions, and many times we instinctively want to say, well, that, Catherine Truitt is the superintendent of public instruction, so it's her fault. Let me ask you this question. If we have concerns about, for example, Castle, is there one place that a parent can go to, or a group of parents, and express those, and not just be some person who's sending a letter or an email, but who can actually get the attention of the right person who can do something about this, who can get this taken off the website, for example?
Well, so first of all, I would say that parents need to ask themselves, what's the issue with it being on the website? I mean, right now it's just on the website.
The state supports it. I don't know.
The real
what
issue is if they see
possibly be
that they're, if they see this in their child's classroom, or if they learn that their child's school is paying Castle to train teachers, etc., which a school or district would have the right to do. it's at that point that parents need to mobilize and say, no, I don't want my children engaging in white privilege lessons while they're at school. So I think parents need to ask themselves, am I actually seeing this in my child's classroom? And if the answer is yes, then they need to approach the school.
Well, if I may, and I do not want to turn this into a debate. It's
trying to be so nice.
An interview. But if parents see things upon the website that could be used by a teacher that they very much disagree with, it's not a very hard stretch, a long stretch for us to believe that, well, DPI must okay this for a teacher, and so therefore a teacher might teach it. And so we ask ourselves this question: why would it remain there? Because you and I both agree that there are things in Castle we don't want taught in our schoolrooms, and
absolutely.
And so then the question comes up: is it a very difficult thing to take it down? Because it is very upsetting when teachers dig, or rather parents and teachers too, I'm sure, dig into this and see some of the things that Castle's proposing. It just doesn't seem right that we would leave it up there. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. I think that this is state government moves at a glacial pace. There's no doubt about that, and there are procedures and red tape that I have to go through in order to remove things from our website. Sometimes, and this is not true at Castle, but sometimes there are, for example, the North Carolina Council on the Holocaust actually controls one piece of our website, and I needed to get something taken down from there that was linked to something that I did not approve of, and I actually had to go to the council to ask them.
So now we see what she does not approve of and what she does. She can get stuff off the website.
Mm-hmm.
She did not approve of Poland being accurately mentioned in Holocaust education. But the other stuff, which I've just shown you, remains on the website. And that's it. And so what we're finding is that it doesn't really matter what you think, Nancy, what I think, what all the parents in this group who have come together and made a lot of changes, by the way, think. It matters what Catherine Truitt thinks. And that's not what she's elected to do. She's actually one of the few elected people in charge of education. And her job, her only job, is to represent her constituents. And so that is something that she's not doing. Again, it's your fault. It's the parents' fault. It's the Jews' fault. It's whoever's fault, right? She can't seem to get it together, and she demonizes everybody else. And so we will stay on top of it. And the reason we're going to stay on top of it is because there are school boards who are working in good faith to remove critical race theory from all their teaching. Unfortunately, we see that social emotional learning is so embedded in this student risk assessments and things like that. Of course, Catherine Truitt didn't do that. That did come last year ahead of her. But she's not being honest about it. She's saying that schools can opt out. They plainly cannot opt out. So if they can't opt out, we have a state level problem. If we do not solve the state level problem, we're in big trouble, Nancy.
Mm-hmm. Plus, they requested $3 million for Panorama, which is based on just essentially a sister company of Castle. So she's saying, one of my favorite phrases is,
"Are you sure she did that?"
Well, the DPI is requesting $3 million for Panorama surveys, aren't they, from the legislature or something?
Or would you like to take a look at that just to make sure?
Sure, please throw it up there.
Okay, yeah, let's make sure. I'm gonna make sure that we all have everything that we need to make accurate decisions. What you're looking at right now is you're looking at the budget that DPI went to the school board to present, right? This is what J.D. Falkenberry and others are going to ask legislators for. This is what they're asking for your taxpayer dollars for. They're asking for the statewide Panorama student survey pilot program. So Panorama surveys are linked to SEL. They're linked to Castle SEL. They got to have the surveys, the data-driven stuff. So they're asking for This is just state money they're asking for. They're asking for $3 million for that. They're also asking here for a $250K for I believe it's a pre-K social emotional learning. So pre-K social emotional learning program, ding, ding, ding. That's Jamie Falconberry's wife.
Mm-hmm.
She has a pre-K, and the pre-K is paid for in this state by state taxpayers. And this pre-K teaches parents that at 6 months old, babies start to become racist. And at 2 years old, they need an adult intervention for that. And at 3 years old, it's the right time to teach them about transgender learning.
Yep.
So with that being Catherine Truitt's right-hand man and his wife's a lobbyist for those companies, I think it's a conflict of interest. And I'm not so sure how she can oppose that while Jamie Falconberry is at the helm asking for taxpayer money for those things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, I have a favorite phrase now, someone being factual, but not truthful. So it's factual that the NCDPI doesn't have a contract with Castle, but it's not exactly truthful because they are asking for money from its sister company, Panorama, which is based in Castle ideologies.
Federal money.
Yeah. She didn't say anything about that today on the interview. They have a whole child program, which is partnered with the CDC, and they partner internally with their NCSEL implementation team, getting federal money for that. That's going to be distributed to LEAs. So technically, yes, they don't have a contract with Castle, but they are part of Castle's statewide or national initiative. And they definitely have a relationship with Castle.
It's indisputable. What it is gaslighting and it's lying. And so it's gaslighting and it's lying. And it's, again, transparency is for the government. Privacy is for the citizen. With these surveys and with these mask mandates and let me see your medical records and all that, that is turning this on its head. And with having to pay hundreds of dollars to get even one FOIA, that they're turning on their head. And so we've had it. We're done. I can tell you, we're gonna announce some things, Nancy, coming up. I mean, we're gonna take, matters into our own hands with a few things. Definitely, we've got some possible legal things coming up as well.
Yeah, I wish I could talk about some of the stuff I've learned, but I can't to protect identities. But it's bad things, unfair, illegal, in my mind. Psychologically distressing, discriminatory things. And it's very upsetting. And I wish to God I could say something right now about it, but there's, this bureaucracy needs to stop. It's out of control. There's no one really in real leadership.
Yeah, she's not a leader at all. 900 people working in the DPI. They're accountable to no one. 900 people working in the DPI. We're not allowed to ask about any of them. There are 5 or 6 radicals on the State Board of Education. Catherine Truitt wants to protect them. We can't get any information about any of them. And she wants to make us the bad guy. It's not going to stop us. Look, this happens from the state level down. We're going to keep pushing. Again, we're going to be in Moore County on Monday night. We make a little bit of noise. These masks are not normal. They cannot be a way of life. They're not backed by any science at all whatsoever. Let me point that out. None. And we cannot stop fighting this.
Yeah. Yeah. And any doctor who says, well, all kids can tolerate masks, that's BS. That's not fair. That's using their degree to intimidate. It's completely inappropriate in my mind. I would never say something like that. Just because I can tolerate something means someone else can tolerate it.
Who asked you? Who asked these doctors? Who asked them to put on their stupid ass white coats and come in and say, as a doctor? No, as activists.
Yeah, no, she was in there as an activist first, doctor second. I didn't listen to her presentation, so I don't know if she provided any data.
Let me tell you what she said. Science has proven.
Yeah, science.
Any doctor that says science has proven should immediately have their license revoked, period.
Yeah. I mean, science is going to be one of those words like equity where I can't stand to hear it. It's just so misused.
I'm married to a scientist, so
Yeah, I know. And hey, I love science. I was a physician, but God, it's just so political now. It's ridiculous. And if anything, it's a doctor's job or a scientist's job to be questioning science, to be constantly questioning.
you always want to be proven wrong. As a real scientist, your hope is that you're proven wrong eventually. That's hope, is that science advances itself. The door on science is never closed.
Right.
Close the door on an issue in science. It's not science, it's orthodoxy. And it's terrifying.
Right.
When it's
it's the job to always, I mean, that's the whole, that's another thing CRT wants to destroy, is the whole scientific method, because then they can just yell science and everyone has to believe them, rather than going through it critically with hypotheses, et cetera, and actually doing the thinking and work that's needed to be done for real science, not politicized science.
Right. It's terrifying that our children are going to be left in the arms of this. Look, this isn't a game. This is for real. This is people's kids. And so, saying something's on the website, laughing and getting a kick out of this is wrong. These are kids. This is real life. This is real serious. We're not going to stop fighting this. We definitely don't want you guys either. There's multi-levels. We're finding out. Being there. There's nothing like being there. People closest to the issues should show up. They should be there. Keep showing up. Keep doing that. At the state level, our job is clearing out the hurdles and kind of spotting everything that's on the ground, and taking care of getting you guys all the information that you need to be able to do your own research.
And you should not feel guilty for asking questions at the state level. People are not better than anyone else. You can ask the questions. You can say, you might not expect an answer necessarily, but you should never be shamed for asking these questions. It's your tax dollars.
Right. That website, the website he's talking about, that's our money. The website is our money. We deserve. Why are we working on looking at the website? She wants, with Catherine Truitt, wants to happen is go and find it. If it's not happening in your classroom, keep your mouth shut. That's what she's saying. What you should really do is look in your own classroom and find it. No, leadership comes from the top. The reason why, you guys, and I think you know this, is that she's not taking SEL and CASO off the website is because they're going to keep doing it. You saw the budget for it. You saw the budget request. They're going to keep doing it. And she's going to keep saying, stop reading the website. You guys are liars. You're all paid hacks. That's what we are. We're paid hacks. I find it interesting that mothers.
I fund everything myself.
Hey, that's the left wing always says that we're a bunch of paid hacks. And when you hear people on the right doing it, you have to ask yourself, what kind of world, on the right, and conservatives have always said, we don't have enough activists. We don't have people standing in the gap against all this moral rot. And when they do, the Republicans, some of them call them paid hacks. It's just, it's ridiculous. So anyway, guys, with that, we're going to bid you adieu. And we're going to let you know what's going on in Moore County. So stay tuned for that. Nancy?
Thanks for summarizing my long-winded explanations.
It's because I can't handle you saying equity again.
I know, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's not your fault. All right. Good night, guys. Bye.